Hey everybody, how's it going? So welcome back to Reel Up My Park from scratch, and welcome to Reigate Lake, as we have officially become a resort. So we've now got ourselves a nice little hotel and everything. And of course, welcome to everybody old and new, and we are officially here, unlucky for some, episode 13. So for those of you that have followed the channel from the beginning, you'll know that Planet Zoo didn't get this far, and our other series, Try Not to Suck at Airport CEO, went horribly wrong on this episode. So let's just hope that the curse of the 13 doesn't hit us on this one. So for those of you that are joining us for the first time, this is Reigate Lake. It's our ultra realistic theme park that we're building based in the UK, mid-budget sort of Drayton Manor Thorpe Park style. I won't bore you with the details. I'm sure you've already watched the other episodes, and if not, I'm sure you're about to go and watch them. So here we are with our hotel then. So we spent the last two episodes building this, and it's been a labour of love. Many frustrations, but also many absolute gems that have come out of this. So real quick tour of our hotel. Here's our entrance, and it's all this modern theme, modern style that we're going for. Actual functional in game as a hotel. The hotel is hidden in this little annex here of all the places that we could hide it in this huge building. Fully fleshed out reception area then, with your desk and your admin office behind, and your elevators that go down to a main concourse. And your main concourse then has everything that you need for entertainment purposes. It's got a bar and a restaurant on the left hand side, the other right on the left hand side, and underneath you've got a games room fully kitted out. We've called it Grabby. And then over here, this is our last episode that we were building. This was a massive task. We built our accommodation block, fully fleshed out hotel rooms. Look, so everything inside the hotel room is as you would expect it, and then all of the corridors and everything are all fleshed out, and it's on 2 stories, and it's a 70,000 piece building. And it's huge, and it takes ages if you try and click on the building to edit it. So I don't think I want to do much more editing to that building. Thank you very much. And then we've also got our little lobby area, conservatory area where you can just come and chill out. We've got our conference center where we have a reception area, and then of course the main part of a conference center is actually having a conference room. So here we go with our conference room. So we've got a bar just around the corner there, shenanigans, and then a chill out area for all of your meet and greets and your networking stuff, and then your main concourse area here where you can actually come and see events. And you can host multiple other events here, so weddings, you've got a dance floor and everything here. So as you can see, the resort is fully coming together, but it's time to bring it to life. So up until this point, we've just been dealing with buildings, and it's very sterile and very dry. And as we already know from the previous episodes, everything starts to come to life when you do the foliage. So this is our beast that we're working on. It's a massive area. We need to get the car park done. We need to get the landscaping around the actual roadway and making sure that that's all finished and done. We need to do the garden around the side here. We need to find a way of making this prettier in the middle, and we also need to do the pool, so that needs to be done. We need to do the facilities for the power and the water that feeds the hotel. We also need to do the access road up to the coaster, because we've said in previous episodes that that's what we're going to need to do at some point. So got our work cut out for us. So I think without further ado, let's just get on with it. Here is your first update. Alright, so we've got ourselves a nice little pool area coming along, and I found that I was actually starting to detail the areas outside of the bit that I was working on, so I thought this is probably a good time to actually do a real quick update and show you what's happened so far. And of course I'm going to show you how I've done all of this, because I've had quite a few questions from the screenshots and everything that I've been publishing, so I think it's only fair that I answer your questions as part of this episode. And so this is where it's sitting then in the grand scheme of the whole area, and I've borrowed this whole principle very heavily from the Gardaland Hotel, in the sense that it's got the Blue Lagoon area. It's just this is just a very different size and shape to Gardaland's, but it's got the same similar sort of feel. And the first thing I really worked on, other than the pool and making that look like a pool, is this rock wall at the back. So it's very much a fake rock wall, and it uses different types of rocks as a foreshadow to what's coming in the main area of the park. So we're going to be using these different rock types elsewhere, and so this is creating that consistent that consistent feeling and dragging the park into the pool. So yeah, obviously we haven't done anything with these rocks yet, and we've done very little with the tropical rocks, so that's obviously going to be coming in future episodes and everything. But I wanted this to be a fake rock wall, so if you have a look at the back, we've got a maintenance area, and it's fed by all of this concrete wall, so it would be leaning up against this concrete wall. You'd have all of your maintenance pipes and everything that run underneath here, and this is a serviceable walkway and area that you'd be able to go. The waterfall itself is meant to keep the water moving, so it doesn't go stagnant and stuff. Obviously there'd be chlorine and whatever to prevent that, but if you can keep water moving, or swimming pool water moving, should I say, then that's even better, because you sort of have to make less effort to keep it maintained. So, and it gives a real nice effect, and it actually serves a bit of a dual purpose, because I wanted something in the way of the hotel to hide the park from the background, so you are actually in this like secluded area, and of course there's going to be foliage and everything on this side, and there's going to be stuff over this side, but as you already know, foliage is the last thing I always do in an episode anyway. That's the thing that brings the whole thing to life. And so over in this area then, I wanted this idea of a bit of a poolside chill out area, so I wanted to have this, it's not a plaza, is it, like a patio area where you've got loads of seats and everything that you could sit down and sort of chill out by the pool. So I wanted a bit of an infinity pool style look, so it feels like you're actually sat next to in the pool. So that's what I've kind of achieved here. And then I realized that actually on hot days when you're sitting by the pool, this is probably going to get a little bit too intense, so I put the sun cover up, and it dapples quite a nice lot of bit of shade over the seating area, but it actually then serves a bit of a second purpose, in the sense that it's now hiding all of the facilities and everything that's sitting in the background. And this would be quite noisy, right? So it's going to have loads of fans going, and there's going to be water running, and if you imagine like that constant whirring and the hum. So once you get all of that foliage and everything in front of the fence, and then you've got the sun cover, it's actually going to hide this back area quite nicely. So yeah, I quite like how this came about. It was originally overhanging, but I realized that the evaporating water and everything would create a bit of an E. coli risk underneath the actual decking itself. You'd have to keep cleaning it, and you don't often empty your pool to clean it out to start again. So I ended up actually getting rid of the overhang completely and just having it flush to the pool. It's easier to upkeep. It's much cheaper to upkeep it as well. And then coming over to the maintenance facilities, this is very familiar actually to some of the hotels that I've seen, in the sense that you'd have an electric substation and the water parts, and they would be together. It's open for debate whether that's safe to do that. It depends on the country that you're in and the studies and everything that have been completed to achieve that kind of idea. But yeah, so this is what I wanted to do. They're carbon copies of each other, and one would be servicing this main building and the other one would be servicing the accommodation block, but this is where you would actually do it. And then you'd make some kind of an attempt to hide it from guest view, from wherever you are. So wherever possible, you need to be hiding your facilities. So this is just dug down, but it's actually the same level as the hotel. And then you've got your access route that comes round the side here. So if you need to either get a truck or a lorry in, you go down the bottom, or if you just need to get foot access, then you can come through this way and down the stairs. And now I started to detail the other stuff outside of the actual hotel. So I started to do the front here, where I'm starting to get a feel for the look of how I want it to be. And I also decided whilst I was at the gym that I think I'm going to need to bring a road around the side here, because we're going to have parts of the park that need to be accessible, but not by driving through the park. So we're probably going to need some kind of external perimeter road, which means then I need to just change how I'm dealing with this bit of the actual park itself. So that's what I think I'm gonna do in future ones. And then we've also got this little pool bar. So it's had its first detailing pass done. It just needs its fine details. There's loads of stuff that I wanted to actually put in here, but it still needs quite a bit of work. I just decided it was going to be nice and simple. It's a bit of a shack that's just thrown up. They'd only open it when the pool is busy. It wouldn't necessarily be an organised thing like a restaurant or a more organised food kiosk in the actual park itself. This is just a shack, but you would have beer lines and everything, and the beer lines would be fed from the main bar in here, and the lines would be long enough so you can normally get lines that can hold the equivalent of 15 to 20 pints in it if you wanted it to be that long, and if not, you can get boosters anyway. So I've seen them in pubs that have got like 3 or 4 floors and they're all being fed from a basement cellar. So there's precedent set for this sort of distance between the cellar and the actual bar area itself. And so then talking about the actual pool area, so I've just put loads of sun loungers and everything around, just to make it sort of pop to life a little bit. Like I say, it still needs its fine detail things, but it's already. But the actual design of the pool, I tried my hardest to get smooth round edges, and actually I found that by using beams and stuff to create that smooth round edge, it ended up looking a lot worse and a lot messier and untidier than actually just biting the bullet and asking you to squint and believe that this is a round edge. So in real life, this would be a smooth, round pattern, right? But just in Planet Coaster, it's just impossible to do. So sometimes it's easier to say, no, it's a better design choice just to have it as straight edges, round, and give a bit of like jaunty angles and stuff to it. And actually, I quite like how it's turned out. I wanted this idea of two-tone as well, so I wanted it to be very separate from the pavement area that I've got outside the hotel. So this is obviously going to be having loads of foliage and gardens and stuff put in to break all of this up, and there's going to be grass areas and stuff. But I wanted this to feel like it was a very distinct area. So what I did to start with to create this whole pool is to dig down into the ground and fill it out with water, but you tend to do your holes wider than you actually need it. So if I were to remove, actually, should I just show you? Come out of the GUI. So if I move everything here, you'll be able to see that there you go. So all I've done is I've just dug out the hole that's wider than it actually needs to be, and the actual water line goes underneath the waterfall. But then I just line it off with loads of concrete and stuff, and it creates this nice little clean line. And then the same is true over here. So where I've got the distinguishing, the difference between the two patio areas is they're just on different levels. And I use the firehouse technique, but the TMTK concrete to actually achieve this. So I use the firehouse roof technique quite a lot, and I talk about it quite a lot in other episodes. But it's essentially just one big building that contains flat pieces of this TMTK in a shape. So you can see that it just lines around the actual pool itself, and it lines around the outside of where I want the brickwork to be. But because you're dealing with constant square pieces, they don't always create this lovely, nice little outline. So all you need to do is just find something to hide that outline. Imagine it like a colouring book where you've got the black lines, and that's what the brick area is actually supposed to be doing. So it just hides that unsightly line between the two. But yeah, that's essentially how I do this. So the pool area itself is far wider, or should I say the dugout area is actually far wider, and it's just multiple things that have just been put together. So there's my actual pool outline like that. So I've just lined the bottom off with a blue coloured concrete just to create that blue effect on the actual pool itself, and then I've lined off the walls with more concrete and then the concrete pillars, and then everything else is just a lake, as the game would know a lake. But when you actually put it all together like that, it comes together as the pool area. So my next bit anyway is to do this main plaza area, and I think I'm going to start doing the front area in the car park as well. So I'm going to carry on doing that because the autosave is about to kick in, and I've already had 3 game crashes with the autosave. So I'm going to actually just crack on, and I will see you for the next one. Alright then, so I'm starting to make some progress on the area, and when I started this whole process I didn't really know what I wanted to achieve from it, and I did that deliberately really. All I knew is I wanted to break up the patio area. I didn't really know how I wanted to break it up. So then I went back and revisited the park and sort of got a bit of a feel for how the park is doing it, and some of the park, especially when it comes to the SLC and the placement of that, feels a bit awkward. And so I thought actually the park would probably do this in the hotel as well, and it needed to feel a little bit forced. So this whole nature area in the middle here is exactly how I wanted it to be, in the sense of forced nature. It feels a bit awkward, it feels a bit cheap, it feels a bit placed there because it's what they should place there rather than because what they wanted to place there. Budget constraints and everything would probably dictate that to them. And so that's why I came up with this idea of the fountain in the middle, with the concrete around it and the different colours, the park colours, so it's on brand. And then this idea of having flower beds that sort of jut into that concrete, and it's cut out by that concrete, but then it's not symmetrical because the accommodation block's symmetrical, right? So we've already got symmetry in the area, but it needs a bit of chaos adding to it, and so that's what I've kind of managed to achieve here, and it looks beautifully rubbish. And I actually quite like how this is turned out, especially from the ground view. You've got quite a bit of site variation. It's not symmetrical. It's not comfortable sitting when you look at it, and that's the idea. Like, you're supposed to be lost in a world. And so I also there's a memorial garden or memorial park that's close to me that uses this effect, and it's beautiful because you've got this topiary on the one side, you've got this brutalist concrete on the other, and the flower bed in the middle, and it actually creates a bit of a difference in sight as you're walking around it. So you get to experience the flower bed from different perspectives, and it's done for memory reasons, for purposes of like war versus peace and stuff like that. And actually, I really liked that concept, so I've copied that across, and I've put that in here. I've just changed up the shape and size of the flower beds and stuff, but you kind of get that perspective here actually, that you can sort of, from the guest level, you can look through to the accommodation blocks and the fountain from what would be the peace side, this this topiary side, or you can look at the brutalist side. And still get the same flower bed. So yeah, I kind of wanted to have that in. And then I also wanted to have forced pockets of grass placed in here as well. So it would have felt like they just paved the area around these randomly placed parts that has no real thought, or no obvious, should I say, no obvious thought to how it's been placed. Whereas if you look from the top, it actually does. It still filters the guests quite effectively. So you come out of here, you go past the fountain, you either go left or right. So we're still controlling the guest flow, but randomly controlling it as well. So it's a bit of a juxtaposition area, and it's come to exactly how I wanted it to feel. So I now just need to go ahead and choose the palette of plants that I want in here, and I'm absolutely not a gardener in any way, shape or form. This is where the likes of Mike Sheets would come along and go, you've done this all completely wrong. So I need to do some research before I start to choose the palette of plants. But I like how the area is coming along now. And remember, we still need blank space. This hotel is going to get busy in some aspects. So you do still need to have movement space. You need to be able to let people move around the space and enjoy that area. So it shouldn't be too claustrophobic and enclosed. And so then coming across this way, I have started to then place down some of the trees and get a feel for how I want the area to be. And I knew straight away that I wanted the path in this area to have a similar lining to the paths at Canada's Wonderland, in the sense that you've got all of these massive concrete slabs that line the paths, and it creates a very casual sitting experience. So the path that you've got running around the front of the hotel is not a destination path. It's not a path that you would take to go somewhere. It's a path you would take to go and explore. And so for that reason, you want this area to be as casual as possible. And so I've put official benches and bins and everything down, so you can sit on a proper bench if you want to. But actually, if you just want to chill out and just take in everything that's going on, then you could just sit on the curb, and they're big enough to sort of sit on there and relax and do what you want to do. So again, I've not put any of the extended plants down. There's no colour, there's no bulk, there's no clutter stuff around. This is just getting a feel for how I want the walkthrough to be. And I wanted this idea of different levels as well, and with a retaining wall. It felt like this would have been dug out purposely, especially when it comes to excavating everything you needed to for the main building and the car park. So I wanted it to feel a little bit secluded from everything else, and I've managed to achieve that quite nicely actually, because this creates a bit more of an alleyway. So yeah, this is good. I'm liking this. And then coming across to the back end of the conference centre, these are obviously fire exits. So they need to be functional, they need to be open, they need to be wide, but they also still need to be decorated, because this is supposed to be part of a garden area. So that's what I've done here. I've just thrown some gravel down without really much care, just to create a bit of space where it's decorated. But I need to sort out what I'm going to do with these curbs actually, because I think this would probably be lowered in this area, because this is a fire exit and these are a trip hazard. So I need to sort that out, I think. And then I've just started to put the foresty type areas down, just to make sure that I'm getting a bit of sightline ready, because I started to also then do the hills. So we're burying the terrain over in the park over here, right? So this is already a higher level, and it comes down to the car park, and it felt like this terrain undulation, which is the word of the day for fans. The terrain undulation would continue, and the hotel would be sitting in a bit of a valley. And then it also, having this hill over here, because this was originally just a drop away. I just flattened the terrain and it dropped away, but I've now made it an actual landscape. But it felt like it was needed, because this building is a split level building, and you go up a level to come down a level back to ground level, and it didn't really feel like it made sense at the front here, especially as this would be all flat and because it's car park. So what I wanted to do is to create an area that makes this split level make a bit more sense. So it would be that the original layout, or the original land laying, would have been that this would have been on a hill, and the hill would have continued along this way, and it would have continued along to where the stand-up coaster is, and we've excavated this out excuse me, excavated this out to create the actual hotel itself. So that's kind of the feel that I'm going for, and that's why this would be up to this level. This top level would have been the original landscape level for this area, and then it's been edited over the years as the hotel's grown and stuff. So that's kind of what I'm going for here. And then around the back here, I wanted to put a playground, and I started to build a playground that looked awful, and then I started another playground that looked awful, and then another one that looked awful. So as you can probably imagine, this is a bit of a cycle of awful looking playgrounds. And so what I then did was I thought, I wonder if anybody's doing a better job on the workshop, and I found this one. So I think it's pronounced Leon on the workshop, and this is just perfect. It was just simple enough for me to be able to use in the actual park itself. I made just a small few tweaks just to make it Reigate Lake style, but this was just perfect for what I wanted. So I'm going to break my rule again for the second time in this series, and I'm going to use a blueprint. So Leon, if you're watching, thank you for this set. This is absolutely awesome. And so just like all of the others, I have credited you in the bottom here. So any of the workshop creators that I'm using blueprints for, I create, because if you're using TMTK items, then they automatically download, right? So if you wanted to know and have credit for those TMTK items, even though you already know I'm grateful for them, you get them downloaded and they're automatically there, and if you wanted to know who it was, you can go to the workshop and find out. But whereas when you're using blueprints, you don't get to credit the creator. So that's what I'm doing here. So anyway, that's the idea of the area that's coming together quite nicely. And I thought I wanted just to do a quick update, because I'm starting to get to the point where I'm bulking out, and it's going to have some real rapid changes as this is going to start to come together. And the car park needs some more work before I do the big sweep of everything and start putting plants and stuff in. So just wanted to update that, and I'm going to carry on, and I'll see you for the next one. Okay, so we've got some updates going on to the front of the hotel this time. So I've been working primarily on the car park and the road layouts, and making sure that the foliage and everything is as we want it at the front end of the park, so that we can then start to go through the whole hotel complex and do the final detailing phase, and making sure that all of the landscaping and everything is exactly as I want it to be. So for this one, I've worked on this area of the car park. I think it's possibly a little bit too small for the size of the car park. But looking at some of the other precedents that's been set for the other hotels that we've got in our portfolio, it seems that this car park is about right. But I think because of the scale of the park that we're doing at the moment, I think this is why this car park feels like it's a bit small. But it would service the size of the hotel that we've got. If the hotel wanted to expand, they would need a second car park, and I would imagine that second car park would come over here. But anyway, I've done some maths and it sort of just about works out. So I wanted to have this idea of the roundabout and a bit of a feature of the roundabout, so that you would come through from the car park and you'd go left to the hotel car park, or you'd go straight on to do the drop off and everything. And because you wouldn't have that much traffic on the ramp here, you wouldn't necessarily need to worry about pedestrians and cars sharing this space. We just need some signage and everything up just to make sure it's a little bit safe. And then I've worked on the wooded walkway a little bit more as well. So I've put the bollards in as well, just to make sure that the cars can't drive down the pavement and stuff. So that's all now safely there. And then coming over this way, I've just made it absolutely clear that you're entering from a one-way system to a two-way system going into the car park. Checked the distances here. It's a bit tight, but it's just about right. And again, this is something that we see quite a lot, where you've got going from one way to two ways. It sort of narrows quite quite dramatically into the car park, and then it just opens up into a free-for-all. There's no circulation needed in this car park because it's actually quite a small car park. It's quite a small space. So people are just free to drive around and do whatever they need to do, as long as they're leaving on the left. Arriving on the left and leaving on the right, then that's absolutely fine. They're free to do whatever they want in here. And this is the most efficient spacing layout that you can have as well. I tried different combinations of different things because of the size and the shape. Because it's a bit of a dog leg of a car park, you're always going to have this bit of dead space here, this dead space here, and you also need to allow some kind of circulation to go on. So around this way, although we're not enforcing circulation, it's still there. And then I also thought as well that we had this bit of roadway here that doesn't really lead to anywhere. Because originally the plan was to have this as a bit of a kids area, wasn't it? If you remember back to previous episodes, we were talking about having some smaller, gentler rides hidden away at the back of the park, which this would have been the original part of the entrance part of the park. But actually I've decided to make it a bit of an access road. Now, it's not too much of an access road because we've got a tree and we've got the coaster supports in the way, so need to do a bit of thinking about this one, but it felt like it needed an access road here so that you're not coming up over this way and having to drive through the coaster area or drive up. Well, from here it's literally round the other side, isn't it? So it sort of felt like there needed to be something there. I mean, you could slip a van past quite happily, but you wouldn't get lorries and stuff in here, so that's kind of where we're thinking at this anyway. And then we've got the staff only road, so you wouldn't necessarily need gates or anything here because everything's fenced off beyond. So like this bit here is all fenced off. The actual park itself has its perimeter fence coming around this way, so you can't actually create any security breaches that you would have here. So having this bit open is probably fine. And you've got your gate down here as well, so you can't actually get back of house. And then coming through to this front part here, all I've done here is I've just put the concrete down. So this was a bit of a as you can see here, is a bit of a mix mash of all of the different path types and styles and directions and stuff. And I just wanted to have it very clear where the road is and very clear where the pavement is. So all I've done is I've just put the concrete down and just coloured in the area. It's a bit of like that whole hiding a misdemeanor thing that we've been doing over in the other part of the park, you know, where we're using concrete to hide bits of path and stuff. So that's what I've done here, is I've just used the firehouse windowsill just to curb it off. Same principle as we did with the pool. It's so that it actually hides the unsightly edges of the concrete, but it gives it like a bit of a line. And then it also makes this road now very apparent as to where it goes, because when you're coming in this way, what I figured, or what I realised very quickly, was for a driver that's not paying attention, happens quite a lot in the UK, they're probably going to be tempted just to carry on driving straight on. So you need to mitigate that risk to your people, to your guests. So I've put the bollards all along the pavement so people couldn't drive into it, so they're going to drive into the bollard. But I've also made sure that the path is a different colour. So you don't want your paths and your roads to be the same colour as each other, because then drivers that aren't paying attention. So drivers that aren't paying attention will then have a subliminal way of driving. They'll just let their natural reactions take over, and they'll just be following the black road or the tarmac road. So that's why you'd want your pavements to be different. But actually it gives you a bit of a decoration perspective as well. It gives a bit of a sightline difference. You know, you've got something different to look at. And then I've just put all the mulch around just to give flower beds. And so I kind of wanted to give the idea that some of this is still new, particularly as you've got the different shades of tarmac. And this is mainly because the difference between using path and the paint tool, right? So, but I wanted to give this idea that this actually might be newer, which is why it's a darker tarmac. And so I wanted this area as well to be sort of fresh. So we haven't got so many plants growing, we haven't got so many weeds growing, but then other places it's probably a little bit more established. So like you've got this bit down here where we've planted some plants and we've got a little bit of growth that's coming through and stuff. So yeah, I like that kind of idea going on. And then I've also dragged around the poplar trees. So because this is the common theme with the whole parking lot, right? Or the car park, in the sense that you've got them lining all of here, and then you've got them consistently coming around this way and then consistently along here, and then it felt like it needed to come all along here as well and be a bit of a feature of this hotel area. So that's what I've done here. And we've actually got a couple of parks that are guilty of overusing poplar trees, so I kind of wanted to get that feel going across, but they're quite good actually as like a sightline thing. They create lovely little avenues like this, look, so as you're driving out it's quite a nice little memorable exit. And then I just wanted to have a look at the actual flow of traffic as well to make sure that everything is sort of sitting comfortably. And so I'm still okay, and I'm still happy that we're bringing the hotel traffic past the disabled and the drop-off, because it then splits into the two, and then it splits into the car park and into the hotel. So essentially what you're doing is with each split of the road, you're diverting the traffic and almost halving the traffic again and again and again, to the point where you end up with not many people coming up here, not many coming up here, and you've got twice as many coming through here, but most of them would be coming down the right-hand side and round. So I've just put the giveaway all along here. I'm making sure that this area in the coach park is actually left for the coaches to do their thing, so to make sure that they've got space to turn around, to make sure that they've got space to merge. And then all of the cars are coming from the hotel up the top here. They'll give way at this line. They'll then merge with all of the traffic that's starting to come out of the disabled lanes and the drop-off areas. They'll come down here and they'll eventually merge with the coaches, and then once they hit that merge point, they'll then come through and then come down the left-hand side and out. So I'm kind of happy with how this is turning out now, and I've started to put the sort of trees and everything around this meadowy typey woody area. And what I'm using the park that's close to me as reference for this one, because whenever I'm putting trees in Planet Coaster, I don't like just leaving them on the ground. It just doesn't feel like the connection between the connection between the trees in Planet Coaster and ground, that doesn't seem very natural. But when you actually look in real life, there isn't often growth around the bottom of a tree, because the tree is using all of the nutrients and everything around its roots to actually grow and survive, right? So it's only in woodlands that you get to have undergrowth and stuff. So for me, this is feeling like I don't know what to do. So I'm using reference images from the park that's close to me on this one, so that I'm making sure that it's got some precedent, and it's got like a hill, and it's got this kind of vibe to it. And all I've done with this then is just to give a worn natural path through. So this would be almost like people are leaving this idea of the established path that's going around the side of the hotel, and they're coming out into the grasslands and they're following a beaten track. So that's kind of what I'm giving the vibe of here. But I didn't want it to be a forest. I wanted it to be an open space where people could come and like chill out in the sun here, or chill out underneath the shade here. But then I'm also allowing them the space to have the wide open grassland over here. And so it's very important when you're doing your hotel grounds that you vary up how those grounds are. You don't want to use a consistently same style throughout. You want to mix it around, because all of your guests are going to have different needs and they're going to have different preferences. Some will want to be in shade, some will want to be in the sun, some will want to just be in the grass, some will just want to casually stroll along pathways, some will want to go and explore. And so you need to accommodate all of those. And so that's where we're at then with the hotel as it sits at the moment. So I think we're about to start the final detailing phase, where I can start bringing in all of the plants and everything into the pool area and making everything properly come to life. So let's see how that turns out, shall we? Let's jump to the final update. Alright then, so just like that, everything seems to be about done in the hotel. I'm ready for the done for now stamp, and I've just spent the last couple of hours making sure that all of the foliage and all of the trees and everything is exactly as I want it. And I've started to bulk out a lot of stuff to give the areas depth, and actually, just like all of the other builds, it's now all starting to really come to life. So let's have a look around, shall we? First thing I did was I just updated the signs. So the actual Reigate Lake signage itself didn't contain the word hotel, so you kind of need to know where you are in the park. So that's the first thing that I did, was added the neon to the hotel. Finished off all of the road markings and the road layouts and everything, and the area in front of the hotel now has all of its signage, so car park and reception and stuff. So it's now a proper roundabout. And then over in the actual main car park itself, nothing much has really changed. I don't think these lights were in the last update, so that's something that I've done, making sure that everything is now lit properly at night. So we've got street lights, got the floodlights and everything going around the actual main area itself. And then when we come back into the staff area, not really much has changed. I added a fence along this side. I realised that it was actually quite easy for you to hop down from this road into the backstage area. Probably not a good look, so I've just added a fence at the top. And because it's a pointy top fence, people would tend not to climb on it. And if they're going to, then well, they're just going to injure themselves, aren't they? It's their own fault. And so then I've just carried on this idea of bulking out all of the foliage on the left hand side here, just to be able to hide the park from the backstage area and the hotel, so it's a bit of like a triple sluice gate, if you like. And I've added the perimeter fencing for the park around this side as well, so this is now looking quite good. And I've also just varied the terrain, so we were talking about this in the previous updates, just making sure that the terrain is consistent with the rest of the park, and it's actually a little bit hilly, and this area has been flattened. And then on the back wall here, I've just added loads of like facility type stuff, so things like the lamps and the electric unit that would be powering the waterfall and everything. That's now all on here. I'm leaving this bit intentionally blank for now because I don't know what's going to come over here. I think it's going to be rapids, but I need to find out what's going to be over here to know how the service road is going to go. So I've even let the land fall away from the from the fence here. So shh, don't tell anybody. It's our little secret. So yeah, I'm going to leave that intentionally there for a minute until I know how that's all going to turn out. Coming back to the actual main hotel then, so I've carried on the detailing down what I call the woodland walk, but it's not really a woodland walk, but I've just like lovingly named it the woodland walk. And then again bulked out everything with the foliage and the bushes and everything that's on this side. We've now actually got quite a nice little vantage point here, so all of the trees that I've added in now kind of obscure the view from the car park and the bustle from the other side, but it also creates this really awesome view when you're looking over the side of the balcony down to the walk. And it actually looks like it's an actual woodland walk, so I quite like that. It's turned out quite nicely. Another thing that's actually turned out really nicely is the idea of the view from the balcony here. So we've never actually seen it properly. So in previous episodes, we were all looking at just greenery, weren't we? So this was just green space out the front, and then there was a building suddenly, but it was a bit characterless and a bit lifeless. But now we've got all of the foliage and everything in place. It's really come to life, and it's starting to really feel like it's complete, and it's this hotel. So you've got the pool on the left, you've got the accommodation on the in the middle, and then this extra bit on the right hand side as well, and the flowers and stuff in front. So really like how that's come about, and I actually sort of sat here for a good 10-15 minutes just admiring this and making sure that this was exactly as I wanted it to be, because I've inadvertently, without knowing it, I've actually made guest flow pretty good, pretty well. I don't know if that even English. Let's run with it. I've done guest. No, I'm not even going to try. So the guest flow is more effective. You can either come out the left hand side here and you go down the pool and into this empty space here, or you come down the right hand side and you enter straight into the fountain, and then you can walk through to the accommodation blocks. So this has actually worked out really nicely. Accidentally, I might add. So this one was actually done without any kind of thought and plan, but this idea of me plopping down these random areas actually has paid off quite nicely. So I must have been subliminally doing it. Coming over to the woodland walk then, which is not really a woodland walk, but again, it's this bulking out of the stuff. And all this is just that technique of sinking loads of bushes and trees into the ground and putting them on jaunty angles and everything. There's no real trickery involved. It's just about clever placement. And then I use the rose bushes and the creosote bushes just to give that like almost deathly dead feel, the bulk element. So not every bush you're going to have is going to be fully in bloom or fully bushed out. It's not even a phrase, but it's fully bushed out. So you're going to have these dead twigs, and you're going to have bits sticking out that are a bit unsightly. So all I do is I just colour the roses into a different colour, and we just sort of squint and pretend that they're a different thing. They're not really roses at all, but they are. They are. And again, I have just bulked this out with some more stuff, and I liked this idea of it starting to be a bit overrun. So we've got these very nicely pruned bushes that are lining the pavement, but then we've also got the bulk of the bushes that are coming through. But then as you're walking down the walk, the woodland walk that's not a woodland walk, you end up coming to like the openings. So you're then almost invited to go up into the meadowy type area to go and sit in the sun or the shade or in among the trees or whatever you want to do. And so yeah, it's sort of like hit quite nicely. Then we walk through this way past the fire exit. So I've just tidied this up and made this a bit more appropriate. And I did decide to lower the curb in the end. So it's quite important that this was a safe space for you to actually exit if there was ever an emergency. And then we come past the conference centre and just more flowers and stuff that's been added. And then you come past the playground, Leon's awesome playground. So I've just changed up the terrain to be more worn where there would be more kids playing, and then put some foliage and some shrubbery and stuff in where the kids wouldn't necessarily be treading. So they wouldn't necessarily be underneath here, underneath the slide and everything. So I've just made sure that this is feeling a bit sort of not run down, but a bit more unkempt. And then it comes to the main area. So pleased with how this has turned out. So we've got the patio area, this not paving area, the whatever it's called, the seating area that I've put in here. So this is intentionally here with no umbrellas and everything because this is constantly in the sun. It's north facing, so the sun comes around the back of the hotel here. And I realised very quickly when I was putting down all of my decorations that everything is very much directly in the sun. I had nothing that was permanently in shade, so this is why I've got the decking. That's the word. So that's why I've got the decking area here. So I just wanted to make it a bit more sort of private and everything. And then we've just got this natural flow going to it, and unfortunately because of the way that the path trick that I use works, this sort of creates some kind of Z fighting, so you have to stay zoomed in to a certain degree. But this is like this area, so you walk out of the building straight to the fountain area or straight to the pool area. And the flower beds themselves, they're not carbon copies of each other. They are all individually placed down and rotated and tilted and stuff. So the idea is that the flower beds would be the consistent design. They'd be designed to be the same. So I've used the colours from the park. You've got the pink, the yellow, the blue, the red, and the whites as well. But they're not identical because nature's not identical, is it? So it's supposed to be sort of that way. So that's what I've done. Is I've just varied it up so everything's individually placed. There's no copying and pasting going on with the flowers on this one. And then over in the actual pool area, I sort of wanted to hide elements of the park. So we know already that the rock wall is a big wall to block the rest of the park from being seen. But then there's the trees behind it that also do that. I took the decision with the planters here to create single colour planters rather than mixed colour planters. And I had originally had them as mixed colour planters, the same as these ones, but it just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel like it should do. So I wanted to do single colour. And actually, there's a hotel at one of the American parks that does this very, very well. And I saw it with the American colours, red, white, and blue. And I thought actually this is probably what Reigate Lake could have done as well in their whole principle. And then I also wanted this idea of the palm trees. So the palm trees are there just to create some kind of difference in the tree textures that you've got. So everything around are all like these Brazil nut trees and beech trees and all that sort of stuff. But it felt that because this is supposed to be a bit more of a tropical pooly type area, I wanted to mix up the tree textures a little bit, and that's why I ended up going for the palm trees. They're not wild palm trees, they're not planted into the ground, or they're not natural. They are purposely placed there into these planters, but they create just enough little bit of shade just to create a bit of variation, but they don't take away from the idea of being the sun. The sun and everything. And then the decking on the back has really come across, just as the autosave kicks in, has really come across quite nicely. So the trees that are blocking the view of all of the facilities at the back here, they're actually sitting quite nicely on the terrain, and they create quite a nice bit of shade. And this is now quite a nice little private area. And the decking area here is actually really nice too. So I've put out some of the signs, so the no diving signs. Well, we don't have no diving signs. I've used no swimming signs instead. So if the autosave stops soon enough, then I'll be able to show you what I mean. But this is what I was talking about with the flow of the guests anyway. So with this being the main building, you would either come down the stairway this way or come down this way, and you would end up in the foyer down here. And you're either going to come out to the left hand side where you come into this empty space, which is quite a good thoroughfare into either the accommodation building or round to the actual pool area itself, or you're going to come down to this area, come down this side, and you're going to straight away land at the fountain area. So you've got a choice when you're up on that balcony as to which way you're going to actually go. You're going to go left and go out towards the pool area and sort of sit by the pool, or you're going to go right and you're going to go to the fountain area. And so the other thing that I've done with this whole area is the idea of the lighting. So I've kept the lighting around here very subtle. I've used the vintage lamps, so not the tall ones that you get that throw a lot of light. I've used the shorter, fatter ones because it creates this awesome like orangey yellow glow, and it's just this really warm feeling at night. And then I've just mixed it up with a lot of modern lighting, so all of the box lights and underfloor lights that point up so you can see them on the decking like here. And then I've also added them along the side of the building here, so it just lights up the side of the building. And then within the fountain itself, I've put the blue lights, which are the consistent colour from the actual pool itself. And then I've just put lights around the outside just to span onto the actual concrete padding that we've got here. And then I've just dappled across all of the other lights, so the shorter, fatter vintage lights that are all along the side of the pool, just to create that nice little warm glow. And then you've got the horrific fluorescent lighting that's living inside the bar area. So that's that awful like grey greeny colour. Remembering this is supposed to be a shack, so it's a nicely decorated pavilion, but it's just a bit of a shack that's put together for the sake of having somewhere to sell things. So the autosave, let me show you. So quick, what was I showing you? So here, as we're on the subject, the awful lighting, there we go. So there's the fluorescent lighting, and then we've got these vintage lights that are here. And then I was talking about the decking. So the decking is now like a quite nice little comfortable area. This gives such an awesome view of the waterfall and the bar area. And there's our no swimming signs, which is supposed to be no diving signs, but we don't have no diving signs, unfortunately, on the workshop. So let me actually come out of this one. Let me show you at night. Let me actually show you, because I don't do this that often. So I sort of think I probably should. So here we go. Here it is at night. So the pool itself has all got the spotlights and the area lights within it. So they're all the same blue colour as the flooring and the side of the wall as well. And I've also just added in some lights underneath the waterfalls, just so you can see it, and it creates a bit of a feature of the waterfall. And then this is this warm orange glow everywhere. And I toyed with the idea of having like fairy strip lights, you know, the ones that rope lights that you have around, but it just made the place look really tacky and cheap, so I decided not to. So there's the blue in the fountain, which it looks awesome. And then everything else, like the uplighters along the actual building and the neon and everything, now actually makes sense. So whereas before it didn't, just get rid of that. Whereas before it didn't really make sense because there wasn't any foliage and everything to break it up. It was just very stark. But now it all just falls into place. It's lovely, it's lovely. And then inside the main building is really bright and quite garish. But then that's how it would be. And then the woodland walk, that's not the woodland walk, is the same sort of lighting. It's that warm glow lighting. The idea is that it's on a warm summer's evening, you'd come down here, go for a stroll. And then the one thing that I've never actually shown you at night is the conference centre. So the conference centre then has a dance floor, just like that. See, one dance floor with all of its lights. So it's come across really, really nicely. I'm really pleased with how this is done, and that now means that we are in a position that we can actually go back into the park and have some fun in the park. So bearing in mind that this is a British theme park and it's mid-budget. So we're not dealing with huge investments. We're not dealing with massive RMCs. We're not dealing with huge B&M coasters. We're not spending masses and masses and masses of money on stuff. We are going to be doing clever investments, not massive investments. So I've got so many good plans for the next couple of episodes, but I will leave this episode here. And guys, I'll say thank you so much for joining me today. If you like the episode, then you know what to do. Leave a like. The algorithm then sorts out finding other new fans for us. And of course, if you want to know when the next episode comes out, hit the subscribe button and the bell, and well, you know what to do by now. You're not silly, are you? YouTube veterans, you lot. So guys, thank you so much for watching today. I will see you all soon. Until we speak again, please take care of yourselves. Bye bye.